Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. I am your host, Charlene, and I would love to be the first one to say Happy November. Today is a fun one, you guys. It's all about our familiars, our spiritual companions, and our magical allies. I'll be talking about what they are, their history, grab some more modern interpretations of them, and of course provide ways we can work with our familiars in our work, jobs, and corporate world. But first, quickly, some things I did over the past weekend to help in my own personal craft. You know what? I traveled, and if you are actually listening to this on the early release over at Patreon, I'm still traveling. This is posting early for my Patreon members, so if you are actually listening on that platform ahead of my Wednesday post, I am still in Texas with my boys. I did record this episode a little earlier than I normally do with the travel plan, so I won't be able to recount maybe the weekend as much since it is early, but I can tell you that after I recorded last week's Samhain episode, I had a major purge, major purge. And it was in that physical realm, my personal stuff, tangible things like clothes, closet stuff, but more impactful were the boxes of files and paperwork. You know those banker boxes, right? That you keep the important documents filed in? Well, I have 8 of them, or I had 8 of them. Mostly business, but some personal stuff was in there too. And for some reason, my fire pit was calling me, and I knew I wanted to do some type of fire magic with, Samhain coming up, but I got pulled in a little bit of a different direction. So I wanted to incorporate, the waning moon energy that was, moving in, transitioning into the dark moon phase that we're in right now with some releasing energy and me. And saying goodbye to whatever I needed to let go. Well, all of a sudden, this is what I needed to say goodbye to, and this is what I needed to let go of. They were all things I no longer needed, and I'll be honest, there were a couple things, like 5 or 6, that little things that I pulled out as keepsakes. But for the most part, one by one, I touched each piece of paper, I looked at it, I assessed it, and I said goodbye. Now, I have documents going back to 2011 in these boxes, and oh my goodness, you guys, gosh, it felt so good. Now, I was not able to finish all the boxes, it's extensive, but by releasing what no longer served me, I feel like I opened space for new adventures to come in. And I have a feeling they are business related. It was definitely the focus of the purging, and it consumed, just the boxes at the fire pit consumed over 5 hours of my time. Now, I also did some personal stuff and purged clothes that represented a me that is no longer, a part of my life that I have walked away from. I got a huge trash bag full of donations from the cleanse. And then, after I did all of that, I actually started cleaning my home. So I reorganized my closet and I folded and tended to my personal belongings in there. I also cleaned my bedroom and made it the comforting, cozy retreat that I love so much. And it really did feel like all of this, whatever reason, it's certainly not how I went into the weekend. I didn't think this was going to be happening, but it was super apparent. It was definitely the direction I got when I woke up on Saturday morning, and that was it. That's what needed to happen. Something was ending. And again, I'm not completely sure what it will all tie into, but it really does still feel like something is stirring, something is brewing, just waiting to make itself visible to me. I think this new house has something to do with it too. If you remember back in July, I bought a mixed-use building and I moved into the residential portion of it. Now, there's something here. There is something here in this new space that is tied to it. I feel pretty strongly about that. And I'm really excited for things, spirits, entities, familiars, whatever the relationship is. I'm really excited for it to start and blossom. Well, speaking of familiars, this episode called to me, so I squeezed it in. I know I got help from that badass alley cat one night recently, and it's been on my mind a bunch about what a witch's familiar can be. So let's jump right into today's episode and explore our spiritual companions and our magical allies. A witch's familiar, in the traditional sense, is seen as a spiritual entity or animal companion that aids us in our magical practices. Historically, familiars were believed to be supernatural beings, often taking the form of animals like cats and dogs, birds and toads, and they were thought to serve witches by assisting them in spellcasting, protecting them from harm, or even carrying out magical tasks on their behalf. In some folklore, familiars were considered to be demons or spirits, gifted to witches by malevolent forces, particularly during the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries, when authorities believe witches actually used these creatures to perform evil deeds. In contrast, modern witches today, we often view familiars in a more positive, supportive light, rather than being seen as a, tool of dark magic. Familiars today are understood, as magical allies, whether they're actual pets or spiritual guides. So these companions, they may offer protection, help us focus our energy during rituals, or maybe even provide insight through intuitive connection. Familiars often form a deeply personal bond with the witch they assist, enhancing their magical workings and, serving as a source of comfort and spiritual companionship. Familiars are not limited to the physical world, as, some witches connect with ethereal or spirit familiars, which connect as guides in meditation, divination, and their astral work. So I mentioned familiars in the witch trials, and that's probably a good place to start, at least for the historical content. So during the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries in Europe, the concept of familiars became closely associated with accusations of witchcraft. Familiars were believed to be supernatural beings, or those demons, often manifesting in the form of the cats, dogs, toads, birds. In the eyes of the authorities at that time, these creatures were thought to serve witches as intermediaries between the physical and the spiritual realms, assisting them in malevolent activities like casting spells and cursing people and performing rituals. So one of the key elements of the belief in familiars during that period was the idea that witches entered into a pact with the devil. The familiar was seen as a demonic gift, often given to witches in exchange for their souls or loyalty to Satan. These familiars were thought to have their own supernatural powers, which they would lend to the witch they served. They were also believed to sustain themselves by sucking the blood of their witch masters through, like witch marks. They called them witch marks. These were just, like scars, moles, or other natural blemishes on the witch's body. But these marks became a focal point during the witch trials as inquisitors would, examine the accused witches for any signs of a mark that may indicate the presence of a familiar. Familiars were frequently mentioned in the trials across Europe and New England, with detailed testimonies, often describing the specific animal that were, said to accompany the accused witch. For example, in the infamous Pendle witch trials of 1612 in England, there was a familiar named Tib, who was a cat, and there was a familiar named Ball, who was a dog. They were both mentioned as being in the service of several of the accused. The relationship between a witch and her familiar was portrayed back then, not only as magical, but also deeply personal and, intimate, sometimes linked to the bond between, much like like a servant and a master. So this belief in the familiars really added fuel to the hysteria surrounding witches and reinforced the notion that witches were deeply tied to dark supernatural forces. And the presence of a familiar was used as further evidence of a witch's guilt, And many women, and honestly, some men, were accused and persecuted based on their association with common household animals. The fear surrounding familiars was clearly reflective of a broader societal anxiety about the unknown and, the supernatural, as well as the increasing demonization of those who practiced folk magic, herbalism, or even healing. Also during this time, though, familiars were commonly depicted as spirits or demons that took the form of animals, and they were frequently, linked to witches as symbols of evil. So these animal-shaped familiars were thought to be supernatural beings that assisted witches in carrying out malevolent acts such as, casting harmful spells, cursing people, or even influencing events in their communities. So the belief that familiars were demons in disguise contributed to the fear and the demonization of both witches and the animals that they were associated with. The idea that witches worked alongside familiar spirits really can be traced back to pre-Christian traditions, but during the witch trials, this belief became twisted into something far more sinister. In the eyes of the church and state authorities, the familiar was not merely an animal. It was considered a demonic servant sent by Satan to aid the witch in her nefarious deeds. So familiars were believed to communicate directly with the devil and to be endowed with magical powers that they would then lend to their witch master. Familiars were often described as, our common domestic animals, which of course were readily available in rural settings. Cats, particularly black cats, became one of the most notorious symbols of the witch's familiar. But there were other animals. There were dogs and birds. I mentioned toads, rats even, hares, even some insects were frequently mentioned in the trial testimonies. So the specific choice of animal often depended on the local folklore and the superstition. Black cats, for example, they were associated with witchcraft because they were thought to be able to move, more stealthily at night and were linked to the mysterious and the unseen world. One key aspect of how these familiars were depicted was their supposed ability to shift between forms or to take on grotesque demonic appearances when they were not disguising themselves as ordinary animals. Trial records often described witches' familiars as having unusual or maybe even unnatural traits such as glowing eyes, the ability to speak, or the capacity to vanish and then reappear at will. These traits were considered proof of the familiar's supernatural nature and its alliance to dark forces. Moreover, familiars were frequently depicted as feeding on the witch's blood, which was seen as a perverse, mockery in the Christian religion. The idea of blood-sucking familiars emerged during witch trials as authorities searched the accused witches' bodies for, those witch marks, which were believed to be the secret teats from which the familiar would suckle. Now, these marks could be natural blemishes, they could be scars, little moles, but they were interpreted as evidence of a pact between the witch and her demonic familiar. In historical accounts, the relationship between a witch and her familiar was often portrayed as one of control and loyalty, with the familiar acting as a sort of obedient servant to the witch. However, there were also darker interpretations in which, the familiar was seen as dominating the witch, driving her to commit evil acts and sealing her bond with the devil. This contributed to the widespread belief that witches were under the influence of, some malevolent force, making them even more feared by the general population. The depiction of familiars as demonic entities in animal form really just reflected, that broader fear about the supernatural and the unknown, which back then was pervasive. As society sought to explain misfortune, disease, or anything, or any other unexplained event, the idea of witches and their evil, animal-shaped companions, it became an easy scapegoat. Familiars in this sense became symbolic of the invisible and insidious nature of witchcraft itself, reinforcing the idea that witches were agents of evil working in tandem with the forces of darkness. And it really was this idea and concept that played a significant role in the persecution of accused witches. It not only provided evidence of witchcraft during, the trials, but also solidified the idea that witches were in direct communication with demonic forces, further fueling the hysteria and the fear surrounding witchcraft during this era. All right, before I jump into the, familiars and our modern practices, I wanted to quickly look at some different cultures' views on familiars. So in many cultures, many cultures around the world, spirit animals or spiritual entities have long been associated with magical practitioners, playing significant roles in shamanistic, animistic, and religious traditions. These entities are often seen as our guides, our protectors, and intermediaries between the physical and the spiritual realms, helping us, especially shamans or those with spiritual gifts, connect with the forces of nature and the divine. Unlike the European notion of familiars being demonic or sinister, these spirit animals in other cultures are viewed with reverence and respect. So here's some that I pulled for today's podcast. First one is going to be the Native American spirit animals and totems. In many Native American cultures, spirit animals or totems are seen as sacred guides that offer wisdom. They offer protection, and they offer insight to individuals and tribes. The belief is rooted in animism, in which the idea that all living things, including animals, plants, natural elements, but they all possess a spiritual essence. Spirit animals are often thought to embody specific qualities or powers that reflect an individual's own traits or spiritual path. For example, like the bear might represent strength and leadership, while the owl would represent wisdom and intuition. In Native American traditions, spirit animals are not chosen by people. Rather, they reveal themselves through dreams, visions, or like a spiritual journey. These animals serve as lifelong guides, or they can appear at pivotal moments just to offer guidance and assistance then. The totem animal, often represented as a carved figure or maybe like a carved symbol, acts as a reminder of an individual's connection to nature and the spirit world. And totem poles, seen in some Native American cultures, depict like a series of totems representing the tribe's shared and communal connection with specific animals and spirits. Rituals and ceremonies in Native American spirituality often include honoring and calling upon these spirit animals for their guidance and protection. The animals are not seen as demonic or malevolent. Rather, they are viewed as powerful allies that embody natural forces, helping practitioners navigate both the physical and the spiritual realms. Second one I pulled is shamanism and animal spirits. Shamanism, found in many cultures across Asia, the Arctic, and the Americas, is another spiritual tradition deeply connected to the idea of animal spirits. So shamans are believed to possess the unique ability to communicate with the spirit world, often through the help of animal spirits, which act as the guides, protectors, or those intermediaries. In these cultures, the shaman's role is to heal, protect the community, and maintain harmony between the human and the spiritual realms. Shamans typically embark on a spirit journey, like a trance-like state, induced through drumming, chanting, or some type of other ritual, during which, though, they communicate with the spirits of animals, ancestors, or deities. These animal spirits might accompany the shaman into the spirit world, offering guidance, protection, and insight. For example, like in Siberian shamanism, reindeer, wolves, eagles, those are frequently seen as spirit companions that assist the shaman in journeying to different spiritual planes and different spiritual realms. In shamanism traditions, animal spirits can also embody specific natural powers. For instance, the wolf may represent instincts and loyalty, while the eagle symbolizes vision and clarity and, a connection to the heavens. So shamans often form deep spiritual bonds with these animals, learning from them and invoking their qualities during rituals or healing practices. Unlike European depictions of familiars as, really being sinister, animal spirits in shamanism are seen as positive and sacred beings that work in harmony with the practitioner to bring healing and wisdom. Third one I pulled was the African and the Afro-Caribbean beliefs. So animals here are seen as embodiments of ancestral spirits or deities, often associated with specific qualities or aspects of nature. For example, in the Yoruba tradition of West Africa, which heavily influenced Santeria and voodoo in the Caribbean, animals are linked to different deities. So each deity governs certain elements, certain emotions, or aspects of life, and is often associated with particular animals that symbolize their powers. For instance, Oshun, the Orisha of rivers and love, is symbolized by peacocks and vultures, while Shango, the Orisha of thunder and fire, is linked to the ram. In African and Afro-Caribbean religions, spirit animals may appear in rituals, dreams, maybe even divination practices, but they often represent messages from the divine or their ancestors who are, they're guiding individuals in their own spiritual paths. These animals are treated with respect and reverence, and they are seen as bridges, truly bridges between the physical and the spiritual worlds. Now, in practices like voodoo and Santeria, animals may also be sacrificed in rituals to honor the spirit, with the belief that their life force is offered to the divine in exchange for, blessings or protection. This concept is far removed from the European witch trials, demonization of familiars, and is instead that sacred act of communion with the spirit world. So the fourth one I pulled was the Celtic and Northern European traditions. We got to go pre-Christian Celtic and Norse traditions on this one. But they also had a deep connection to animal spirits, which were believed to guide and protect individuals, especially warriors and spiritual leaders. In Celtic mythology, certain animals were seen as sacred, including the stag, the raven, and the salmon. So each of these animals carried spiritual significance and was linked to certain gods or realms of the other world. The raven. The raven was associated with the goddess Morrigan, who is a deity of war and fate, while the salmon symbolized wisdom and knowledge, particularly in the context of the mythical salmon of knowledge in Irish folklore. In Norse mythology, I love my Huggy and Muggy. Yunin and Munin, the ravens of the god Odin, flew across the world to bring him knowledge of all that was happening, serving as his eyes and ears. Wolves, particularly Fenrir and his descendants, also played a significant role in Norse myths, symbolizing both destructive power and fierce power. These animals were not merely companions, they were deeply woven into the spiritual and cosmological beliefs of the time. The last one I pulled is with the Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Certain animals were revered as symbols of divine power or even enlightenment with them. For example, in Hindu mythology, each deity has it's called a vahana, a vehicle, something that is often an animal that represents the deity's power. So Ganesh, if I'm going to say that right, the elephant-headed god, rides a mouse, symbolizing humility and the ability to navigate the material world. Vishnu's vahana is Garuda, a mythical eagle that represents strength and the ability to soar above ignorance. In Buddhism, animals are often seen as symbols of different states of consciousness or virtues. The tiger represents courage, while the elephant represents wisdom and strength. In Tibetan Buddhism, various deities are depicted alongside animals that embody specific spiritual qualities that offer insight and guidance to practitioners on their path to enlightenment. So it's around the world, you guys. Cultures, honestly, around the world have long revered animals as spiritual beings with deep, deep symbolic significance. Unlike the demonized familiars of European witch trials, our spirit animals or spirit animals in other traditions, they are often seen as guides, as protectors, and wise beings that help magical practitioners and spiritual leaders connect with the divine, connect with nature and with our inner self. These relationships are based on respect, on mutual cooperation, and truly a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. All right, let's go modern. Let's talk about some more modern roles of familiars in witchcraft. So I think contemporary witchcraft nowadays, the role of familiars has shifted significantly from the dark, fearsome imagery associated with them in history to a more spiritual and supportive role. For me, familiars have never been seen as demonic entities that are, like bonded to witches by some sinister pact. They are a very spiritual companion that help guide me, protect me, and enrich my magical practices in profound and personal ways. So my experience with familiars is deeply rooted in, I don't know if you would call it like a mutual respect, like a mutual connection, rather than I don't have any domination or control in my personal practice. So when I think of a familiar today, it's more about like a bond with a living animal, maybe even a beloved pet, although not all of our pets are our familiars. Don't want to burst anybody's bubble on that one, but some type of relationship with a spirit guide even. These familiars today provide support, not by doing my bidding, not by carrying out spells for me, but by aligning their energy with mine in a way that amplifies my magic, grounds my practice, and offers emotional and spiritual guidance. So take my cat, for example, Ragnar. He isn't an all-powerful, mystical creature, but the way he interacts with my energy, especially during rituals, is unbelievable. It's undeniable. When I'm preparing for a spell or setting up a ritual, he instinctively knows where to sit nearby me, quietly observing, as if his presence is, both comforting and empowering. Sometimes he'll nudge certain crystals, almost as if to, intuitively guide me towards what I need. There are sometimes I have to have him blocked out of my space because if I'm doing fire magic, I'm so worried his fluffy tail is just going to catch on fire. But so is he with me with everything I do? No, absolutely not. So in moments, where he is a part of my practice, though, I see him as a familiar in a more modern sense, his calm, grounding energy supports my practice, and it reminds me to stay present and focused. Ragnar is definitely aware when there are spirits in the house or spirits by me. I see him. I watch him track them with his eyes. I truly believe cats see things that we can't. So I can't imagine, while I've had many animals over the years that have been by my side, Ragnar definitely has a special spot right now. The role of familiars has evolved to include spiritual entities, not just physical animals. Many witches, myself included, work with, spirit guides or animal totems that are not physically present, but have a significant influence in our magical work. I connect with my spirit familiar, a raven, right, through meditation and visualization. The raven isn't a pet that I can touch or hold, right, but I feel its energy during dream work or divination. In these moments, I sense that the raven is there to, offer me wisdom and insight, and it guides me. It guides me to see things from a new perspective and helps me uncover truths, hidden beneath the surface. This connection feels more like a partnership than anything else. It's got a give and take to it, where I get to learn as much from my familiar as it might from me. So one of the most important shifts in the modern role of familiars is that they are no longer seen as tools of power or manipulation. I think, right? They aren't here to do my bidding or perform magic for me. Instead, they are companions to the truest sense, beings that walk alongside me on my spiritual journey, offering support, protection, maybe insight, but always on their own terms. This sense of partnership fosters a deep respect for the familiar, whether it's a physical pet, a spiritual entity, whatever form it is for you. It's about recognizing that they have their own agency and wisdom to share, and that we get to learn from them as much as they might be helping us. Now, in today's witchcraft, working with familiars is about building relationships. It's about connections that are rooted in intuition and that mutual trust and that shared energy. My familiar, whether it's a cat, a raven, another spirit guide, is a consistent reminder that magic is not something I have to wield alone, right? It's an interconnected flow of energy that I get to share with those around me, including the beings who choose to walk this path with me. Familiars today are not bonded to witches in the dark pacts that people thought back in the witch trials. They are spiritual allies who, with love and respect, make our magical practices even more meaningful, even more connected, and even more powerful. All right, let's talk about the difference between a physical familiar, possibly a pet, and a spirit familiar, which would be more of like the entity or spirit guide. Okay, so the distinction between the two is going to lie primarily in their form, presence, and how we interact with them in our magical practice. So both types of familiars serve a witch in similar ways, offering us support and guidance and protection and companionship, but their nature and the way they connect with us will differ in key aspects. Okay, let's do our physical familiar first. Again, it doesn't have to be a pet, it could be a pet, but a physical familiar is going to be typically a living, breathing animal that shares a close bond with the witch and plays a supportive role in their magical practice. It's going to be cats, dogs, birds. Other pets are commonly considered familiars when they seem to possess a unique connection to their witch. They might display heightened sensitivity to the witch's energies, to her rituals, emotions, and may even seem to participate in magical workings by instinctively appearing during rituals or spellcasting sessions. Key characteristics of this are going to be, first and foremost, tangible, living companion. A physical familiar is a real, living animal that the witch interacts with on a daily basis. The familiar shares space with the witch, often participating in the rituals and spell work or meditative practices by physically being present. Next, I would say it's going to be that bond through the day in and day out life. Our physical familiars bond with the witch through regular interactions. It's going to be feeding, caring, and companionship. The relationship is nurtured not only through magic, but through the day in and day out acts of living and caring for the animal. Next is probably going to be to look for the energy sensitivity. Our physical familiars are often in tune with our emotional or energetic states. For example, like a cat might curl up near us when we are performing a ritual, or our dog might offer comfort during emotionally charged moments. It's this type of connection. It often feels instinctual, as though the familiar is providing grounding energy or calming the atmosphere during magical work. And then another key characteristic of a physical familiar is probably going to be one that enhances our rituals. While they don't cast spells themselves, obviously, the physical familiars can amplify our magic by sharing their natural energy. So this is going to be like, their presence during rituals, our spell work, or meditation. It's going to bring a sense of calm or focus, allowing us to perform more effectively. So they might also gravitate towards certain magical tools or spaces, offering subtle guidance where to direct our energy or attention. All right, what about a spirit familiar? Let's talk about some examples and key characteristics of spirit entities or guides. All right, so these are going to be our non-physical entities that exist in the spirit realm. So these familiars do not have a physical body, but are instead connected to us through intuition, meditation, our dreams maybe, and definitely astral work. So spirit familiars are going to act as guides, protectors, and allies in magical or spiritual journeys. Unlike our physical familiars, they may be with us only during specific rituals, individual spirit work, or maybe during times of deep meditation and reflection. So key characteristics of our non-physical entities, I would say intangible, probably first and foremost. The spirit familiars do not exist in the physical realm. They are usually encountered through altered states of consciousness, such as meditation, visualization, or even our dreams. So witches might sense the presence of a familiar through intuition or psychic impressions, maybe, rather than, through that physical interaction that we were talking about. Next would be like a spiritual connection, which is going to be, that bond that a witch could have with a spirit familiar. It's primarily going to be built through spiritual practices, just like that meditation, divination, or even that astral travel that I just mentioned. Unlike physical familiars who are always present in the day in and day out life, spirit familiars may only manifest when we consciously reach out to them through ritual or quiet reflection. Another key characteristic is going to be the guidance and wisdom they give. Spirit familiars are often seen as guides that provide us with insight, wisdom, or protection in the spiritual realm. For instance, like a spirit familiar might offer guidance during our dream work, helping us navigate symbolic visions maybe, or even act as a protective force during astral projection or shamanic journeying. Shape-shifting is a sign too. It's another key characteristic. Spirit familiars may appear in different forms depending on the witch's needs. They might take the form of an animal. They could take the form of a mythical creature or an entirely symbolic entity. Their appearance often carries deeper meaning, and they may change form depending on the type of work that the witch is engaged in. For example, a spirit might appear as an owl during divination to symbolize wisdom, or then as a wolf during protection work to symbolize strength and loyalty. Another sign would be that non-linear presence. I think spirit familiars can exist across multiple planes of reality, meaning that they're not bound by our physical limitations. They can travel. They can travel with you during your astral projection, they can appear in your dreams, and they can offer protection during rituals. I think their ability to transcend physical boundaries makes them especially valuable in spiritual work that requires insight beyond our physical material world. All right, let's talk about some key differences between the physical and the spirit familiars. Physical and spiritual presence, the physical familiar is a tangible, real world animal like a cat, a dog, something that interacts with us in our everyday life. A spirit familiar, by contrast, is a spiritual entity that exists on a different plane and is encountered through meditation, dreams, or astral work that you do. Another key difference is going to be daily versus occasional interaction. Our physical familiars are present with us every day, providing comfort and companionship, both in and out of our magical work. I think spirit familiars, they're probably only going to appear when needed during specific spiritual practices or, those moments of heightened spiritual awareness, such as, rituals or divinations that we do. Another key difference is going to be the source of energy. Our physical familiars enhance our practice through their natural, grounded energy, which is tied to the physical world. Spirit familiars, they provide wisdom and protection and guidance from the spiritual or astral realm, often helping us connect to, that higher or hidden knowledge. Another key difference is going to be perception and communication. Our physical familiars communicate with us through physical behaviors, their body language, their intuition, and their own instinct. Spirit familiars communicate through symbols and visions or psychic impressions. Their messages may be more abstract and probably going to require a little bit of interpretation. And lastly, I would say roles and rituals. Our physical familiars offer a presence and offer that grounding type energy during our rituals, sometimes honestly instinctively aligning with our energy and our magical focus. Spirit familiars often are going to play more active roles in the spiritual dimensions of magic, such as offering guidance during our astral traveling. They're going to help us facilitate communication with deities or spirits and offer that symbolic protection. All right, you guys, how do we connect with familiars? This one is deeply personal. For me, it's personal. Connecting with a familiar is an intuitive process. It is one that often begins with a strong sense of resonance or connection, whether it's an animal in my physical life or a spirit in the unseen realm. When I'm seeking to connect with a spirit familiar, meditation is usually going to be my starting point. I quiet my mind, I set my intention, and I invite the familiar to reveal itself, allowing its presence to come through symbols, maybe sensations, or even some visions. Now, during spell work or rituals, I can sometimes feel the familiar's energy enter the space, almost, like an unseen companion guiding or amplifying my magic. Now, with my physical familiar, like my cat, the connection is more organic. It feels that it has grown over time, as we are bonding in everyday life. But when I notice him responding intuitively to my energy, especially during rituals, I know my bond runs deep with him. In either case, the connection is about trust. It's about mutual respect. It's about allowing the familiar's energy to harmonize with mine to create a more powerful and grounded, magical practice. All right, intuition is going to play a central role in how we connect with a familiar. This is a deep inner knowing, and it's often going to guide us towards the right animal or spiritual entity that aligns with our energy and our own personal magical path. For many of us, the process of discovering a familiar is not one of actively searching, right? But it's one of subtle attraction, a feeling of being naturally drawn to a particular animal or entity. Often, maybe you don't even know, right? You don't even know why. This connection can happen spontaneously. It can happen through an encounter with a physical animal or, some other worldly being that repeatedly appears in our dreams, our meditations, or even during rituals. When we rely on our intuition, when we trust our gut feelings, allowing these instincts to guide us in recognizing the familiar's presence, we're going to get results. For example, we might repeatedly notice certain animals, such as seeing owls at a significant moment, or finding ourselves surrounded by images of wolves, leading us to that feeling that this specific animal has a deeper spiritual message or connection. This intuitive pull is often subtle, but it's persistent, and it signals that the animal or spirit is aligning with our energy. The importance of intuition is also evident in how we might feel the energetic resonance of a familiar. It's not always about physical traits or behaviors, but about the energy exchange between us and the familiar. A particular animal may evoke a sense of calm, protection, or even empowerment that just feels different from other animals or entities. And it's this sensation. This sensation is often described as an immediate and profound bond where we feel an instinctual understanding that this being is meant to support and guide us on our magical journey. In the case of spirit familiars, intuition becomes even more crucial, you guys. Since these entities don't exist in our physical realm, their presence is going to be felt rather than seen. We may experience subtle nudges in our subconscious, such as recurring symbols or sensations during meditation, something that points us towards a particular spirit guide. Intuition helps us discern whether the energy of the entity is aligned with our intentions and path. This allows us to trust the process of building a relationship with this new familiar. Ultimately, though, my gosh, intuition, we always have to trust our gut. It helps us navigate the often mysterious process of forming a bond with a familiar, but by trusting our inner voice, we allow ourselves to be open to the signs, to the messages, and the feelings that lead us to the right animal or entity that is going to resonate with our spiritual energy and the one that's going to enhance our magical practice. This intuitive connection is the foundation of the relationship, fostering mutual respect, trust, and alignment between us and our familiar. All right, types of familiars. Let's go into them because you're probably asking, is my pet a familiar? All right, so we can actually work with various types of familiars, each offering different kinds of support and spiritual guidance to us. These familiars, I think, can be categorized into the physical, spiritual, elemental, and then maybe mythical. Let's add mythical on too, because you just never know, right? So each one's going to bring its own unique energy and role into our practices. Physical ones, these are going to be, again, the real living type animals, often our pets, that develop a strong intuitive bond with us. These animals offer companionship, they are going to offer emotional support, and they can enhance our magical practice through their natural connection to the physical world. Now, is every pet a familiar? No, it is not. We might love that idea, but no, not every pet is a familiar. Let's talk about some basic ones. Cats, first and foremost, particularly black cats. We have, perhaps made them the most famous physical familiar. They are often associated with intuition, protection, and enhancing psychic abilities. Their nocturnal nature and mysterious behavior really do align with our magical work. Dogs are loyal, protective, and can serve as guardians during rituals. They are often associated with loyalty, courage, and that grounding energy. Birds, certain birds like ravens, crows, and owls, they are believed to carry messages from the spirit world and are frequently seen as symbols of wisdom, transformation, and insight. Snakes are a symbol of transformation. They are fairly popular in the familiar world. They are seen as having many healing properties in many traditions too. A snake familiar can help with personal growth and change. Other animals that maybe are a little less traditional can be, our rabbits, horses, toads, fish, maybe some insects. The key here, though, is the energetic connection between the witch and the animal. Another type of familiar is going to be the spirit familiars that we've been talking about. Again, these are the non-physical entities that exist in the spiritual or astral realm. These familiars are going to be, our guides, protectors, maybe messengers, often revealing themselves through our meditation, our dreams, and our rituals. So spirit familiars can embody the form of an animal, a mythical creature, or even an entirely abstract energy. So for those ones, I would say, animal spirit guides. These are animals that appear in our visions or dreams, offering wisdom or guidance. For example, that wolf spirit, may represent strength and leadership, while a butterfly might represent or, symbolize transformation and new beginnings that are starting. Totem animals are going to be another aspect here, similar to the spirit guides. They are considered to be lifelong companions, though, that embody specific traits that help us throughout our lives. So totems often appear through repeated symbolism or a really, really strong personal resonance. Another one here would be ancestral spirits. So in some practices, spirit familiars may take the form of a deceased ancestor or spirits of, loved ones, offering protection and guidance from the other side. And then with our spirit familiars, I would say deities is another one to look for. Some of us work with spirits that act as intermediaries, between us and our chosen deity. So these entities are often going to serve like a divine purpose, conveying some type of message or offering divine protection. And then third, another type of familiar could be elemental and mythical familiars. Now, some witches work with familiars that are connected to the elemental forces or, mythical creatures. And these familiars embody the raw nature or the mythic archetypes present in various cultural traditions. So elemental familiars, these are going to be, beings connected to the elements like earth, air, fire, and water. For example, an earth elemental might help with grounding and stability, while a fire elemental could assist with passion and transformation. And some witches visualize these familiars during rituals or, connect with them through nature-based practices. Mythical creatures, these familiars can also take the form like dragons, unicorns, phoenixes, or griffins. These beings are often seen as powerful protectors and guides in our magical work. They can represent deep archetypal forces and are commonly encountered during meditation or our dream work. And then we've also got the fae and nature spirits. Some witches work very closely with nature spirits. Often we call these the fae or the fairy folk. They are believed to be part of the natural world, but inhabit a realm that lies between the physical and spiritual worlds. These spirits are often approached with care, with respect, as they are powerful but can be a little unpredictable. Okay, and then lastly, I've got artificial or created familiars. In some of our magical traditions, we can create or summon familiars through magical means. These familiars might be entities that are brought into being specifically for a purpose in our practice, often through spell work or ritual. Servitors, you know I love my servitor. So this is a thought form or energy constructed entity created by a witch to perform specific tasks or serve a particular role. So these familiars are bound to the will of the witch and exist solely for the purpose for which they were created. So another one is going to be an egregore. This is similar to a servitor. They are collective thought forms created by groups of people, like maybe like a coven that you are a part of, but they serve a larger communal purpose. They can be seen as familiars that assist with the collective magical goals of the group. All right, to choose or to be chosen. This is a good topic for us to review because I think we've all asked the question at one point or another, right? Do I choose my familiar or does the familiar choose me? The relationship between a witch and their familiar is often viewed as a reciprocal and intuitive bond where it's not always clear who does the choosing, whether we get to choose the familiar or the familiar chooses us. In many magical traditions, though, the belief is that the familiars choose their witch just as much as the witches are drawn to their familiars. This mutual selection happens through a combination of intuitive connection, spiritual alignment, and synchronicity. All right, many witches feel that their familiars, especially spirit familiars or animal guides, are drawn to them for a reason. It's believed that the familiar senses the witch's energy, intentions, and path and appears when the time is right. This could manifest as a stray cat appearing and taking up residence near a witch's home, or maybe a particular animal frequently crossing a witch's path. In the case of spirit familiars, I think it's often going to be that they reveal themselves during meditation, dreams, or magical rituals, making their presence known in subtle but undeniable ways. The idea of the familiar choosing the witch is rooted in the belief that these beings are wise, right? They are attuned to the energy of those they wish to assist. They might choose a witch based on a shared energetic resonance, or because they feel they have something to teach or offer the witch on their magical journey. In this sense, familiars are seen as independent spiritual entities with their own agency, choosing to form a relationship with a witch because of a mutual need or destiny. All right, what about witches choosing a familiar? We've got the other option of witches actively seeking out a familiar, especially when they feel the need for specific guidance, maybe very specific protection or companionship in their practice. Now, in these cases, the witch may feel intuitively drawn to a particular animal, spirit, or entity. They might sense that a cat, dog, or other animal in their life has a special connection with their energy, or that a particular spirit guide keeps appearing in visions or meditations. So when a witch is seeking a familiar, they might perform rituals, meditations, maybe do some spell work, something to invite the right familiar into their life. I think this one's going to be more of a calling process, where we send out an invitation for a familiar to appear. However, even in this scenario, it is often said that the familiar will reveal itself only if the connection is right, reinforcing the idea that this really is a mutually chosen relationship. Either way, though, you guys, ultimately, whether a witch chooses their familiar or the familiar chooses them, the relationship is considered to be one of mutual respect and alignment. It is not a one-sided process, but more of a coming together of energies. We often describe this connection as just knowing when a familiar is meant for us, whether it's through the recurring presence of a spirit guide, maybe a deep bond with a pet, or an animal that just seems to naturally become a part of our life. The familiar doesn't serve as a tool. It's not a possession. It's a companion. It's a guide. It's an ally that walks alongside us. Both parties, the witch and the familiar, are believed to benefit from this mutual relationship, supporting each other's growth, each other's protection, and magical practice. It is often said that both the witch and the familiar choose each other, each being drawn to the other through spiritual connection, shared energy, and some type of destiny. This mutual bond forms the foundation of the relationship, creating a powerful partnership in magical work and spiritual development. All right, what are some signs? Are you guys asking that? Like, how do I know? What are some signs that an animal or entity might be your familiar? I did a big episode on signs a little bit ago, but it really does require paying attention and being mindful of both physical and intuitive signs. Familiars are believed to have a special connection to you and to your specific energy, and their presence often means that something collective and meaningful and supportive is about to happen. So here's some signs that an animal or entity might be your familiar. First one is reoccurring appearances. One of the most noticeable signs is when an animal or spiritual entity appears to you repeatedly, seemingly out of nowhere, or in ways that feel maybe synchronistic, right? For example, you might frequently encounter a certain animal in your daily life through dreams or maybe even symbolic forms like artwork, books, media. These appearances often feel too coincidental to ignore, suggesting that the animal or entity is trying to make a connection with you. Second one's going to be a strong emotional or spiritual bond. A familiar often forms a deep intuitive bond with you, one that goes beyond the typical relationship with a pet or an animal. So if you feel an unusually strong emotional connection or sense of understanding with an animal, whether it's a pet or a wild creature, it may be a sign that this being is more than just a companion. You may feel that this animal is providing emotional support or spiritual guidance in ways that seem to just surpass ordinary interactions. In the case of spirit familiars, you might feel their presence during meditations, rituals, or dream work, or have that sense of a deep bond or connection with an unseen entity. The spiritual bond can feel comforting, as just like the familiar is there to guide you and protect you. Another sign is behavioral cues from the animal. So animals that may be your familiar often are going to show unusual or inconsistent interest in your magical or spiritual practices. For example, your pet might show up during meditation, rituals, or spell work, sitting calmly by your side or interacting with your tools and with your altar. They may seem drawn to a certain area or objects that are important to your practice. You might also notice that the animal is especially calm, maybe super focused or really protective during these moments, as though they are offering their energy to support your work. Another sign is going to be energetic sensitivity. Familiars are believed to be highly attuned to our energy and our emotional state. So if an animal or spirit familiar is connected to you, they may react to your moods, often providing comfort when you're feeling stressed or anxious or sad even. They might come to you when you need grounding or protection, seemingly in tune with your needs without any direct communication. And for our spirit familiars, you might just feel their energy around you, like a presence offering calm protection or guidance during moments of spiritual work or meditation. Their presence might feel reassuring, it might feel powerful, but they're just as if they are actually watching over you. Another sign is going to be some type of unusual or symbolic encounter. So animals that are familiars may come to you in unusual or even symbolic ways. Like you may encounter the same type of animal in unexpected or mystical contexts, like seeing a specific bird during important life events or noticing a particular creature at moments of heightened emotional or spiritual significance. These animals may seem to appear at just the right time to offer guidance or some type of confirmation for a decision or spiritual path. So in the case of spirit familiars here, you might notice, like recurring symbols or imagery in your dreams or visions, such as an animal or a mythical creature that feels significant to your spiritual journey. These signs might feel like messages nudging you towards a deeper connection with this entity. Another sign is going to be unusual longevity or resilience. So in the case of a familiar here, you might notice that an animal companion seems unusually resilient or has a long, healthy life that feels tied to your own magical journey. Many witches report that their familiar animals have an extraordinary presence, surviving hardships or showing up at pivotal moments in the witch's life, offering spiritual support over that extended period. And then we've also got just direct communication or signs, right? Sometimes witches are just going to report receiving direct signs or some type of communication from their familiars. This could be in the form of a deep feeling of recognition when you meet the familiar for the first time. It could involve maybe more subtle forms of communication, such as like telepathic impressions or those intuitive messages. You might feel like you can understand your familiar on a level that goes beyond normal human-animal communication, right? So with spirit familiars, you might hear messages during meditation. You might receive guidance through dreams or even notice synchronicities that feel like direct communication from the entity. You may even feel their energy nudging you in certain directions or helping you to make decisions. Another sign is going to be just feeling protected or guided. This is a pretty key role of a familiar, to provide that protection and guidance to us. So if you feel protected when a specific animal is around you, or maybe you sense a spiritual presence watching over you during difficult or dangerous situations, it could be a sign that this being is your familiar. Familiars often help shield us from negative energy or guide us in our magical practices by providing that intuitive insights and that energetic support. Another sign, let's see what else, a sense of calm and focus just when we're in their presence. So if you find that being in the presence of a certain animal or entity helps you focus and calm your mind, or maybe even deepen your magical practice, this could be another sign that they are a familiar. Many witches feel that their familiar brings that grounding and steadying energy that enhances their rituals and meditation. And that really does help them connect more deeply with, the spiritual realm. Another sign is going to be just unusual animal behavior. Animals that act outside of their typical behavior in your presence, like showing uncharacteristic calm, attention, or engagement, may be indicating that they are your familiar. For example, a usually shy or maybe aloof animal may gravitate towards you during magical workings, or an animal might exhibit unusually protective demeanor when you're engaging in spiritual activities. This unusual behavior can be a sign that the animal recognizes your energy and is aligning itself with your magical practice. Either way, whatever the sign is, trust your instinct, right? Recognizing a familiar is about trusting your intuition and paying attention to the signs around you, whether through reoccurring encounters, maybe a strong emotional bond, unusual behavior. Familiars tend to reveal themselves in ways that feel deeply meaningful and are aligned with our spiritual path. We've got to stay open. We've got to stay mindful of these signs so we can develop a strong and reciprocal bond with our familiars, whether they're animals in the physical world or a spirit guide from the unseen realm. And it's important to understand that not every animal or entity we feel connected to is necessarily a familiar. Sometimes animals are simply beloved companions that bring comfort and joy into our lives without maybe that deeper spiritual role of a familiar. It's natural to form close bonds with our pets or, feel drawn to certain animals or spirits, but not every connection has a magical or spiritual significance. A familiar has a specific purpose in a witch's practice, acting as an ally and guide in our magical workings, offering energetic support, or even serving as a spiritual protector. In contrast, many animals, whether they're pets or wild creatures, may simply provide companionship and emotional support without being directly tied to our magical practices. So we just have to pay attention, right? Figure out the nature of the relationship and trust our intuition. We can discern whether an animal or entity is serving in a familiar role or if they are simply a cherished companion in our own life. So I have not really talked about time with our familiars yet, and this is one that will vary for sure. The length of time with a familiar, how long they stay with us, is often going to be dependent on the nature of the familiar and the bond between the witch and their familiar, and then the specific role that the familiar plays in the witch's spiritual journey. So in some cases, I think a familiar may stay with a witch for their entire lifetime, the familiar's lifetime, not our lifetime, acting as a loyal companion, magical ally, through all the stages of our practice. This is often the case with physical familiars like our pets, whose lives are, naturally limited by their biological lifespan. So the connection with these familiars is deep, it's enduring, and it's often going to last for as long as the familiar is alive. Now, for the spirit familiars, the duration of their presence is going to be more flexible. Some spirit familiars stay with a witch for a specific period, helping them through particular challenges or phases of their spiritual, or magical development. Once their purpose is fulfilled, they may move on, allowing space for new guides or familiars to enter the witch's life. Others may form long-lasting, even maybe lifelong bonds, remaining by the witch's side as a spiritual protector and guide through their entire magical journey. Ultimately, the length of time that a familiar stays with us is going to be unique to each relationship. The bond is based on mutual respect, mutual need, and that alignment of energies. Familiars may stay for as long as they feel they are needed or connected to our path. All right, you guys, let's tie it into our jobs. Let's do some witchy work wishes with our familiars. I think in this specific area, it's going to be very subtle, but very powerful. And it's a great way to bring our magical energy and support into a professional environment with our familiars. So, while many witches may not openly practice their craft at work, I certainly don't, we can still draw the energy of our familiar, whether it's, again, that physical pet or, a spiritual guide, to help us navigate the corporate world, to help us enhance our job performance and create more of a harmonious workspace. So I pulled some ideas for this one. I grabbed a few ways we can incorporate our familiar into the office. The first one I would say is going to be energetic support and grounding. One of the simplest ways we can bring our familiar's energy into the workplace is through an energetic connection. So before heading into work or maybe before an important meeting, we can call upon our familiar's energy to ground and center us. For example, if you have a familiar like a pet cat or dog, spending a few quiet moments with them in the morning can help us feel calm and focused and ready to face the day. For spirit familiars, we can meditate or visualize their presence, offering support and protection, and giving us that sense of confidence and balance as we enter the corporate world. Second one's going to be protection in our high stress environments. Work environments, especially corporate settings, can be filled with stress, with competition, and sometimes negative energy. As witches, we can use our familiar's protective energy to shield ourselves from these draining forces. We might carry a small charm or talisman representing our familiar. You could have a feather, crystal, token, something to invoke their protective energy throughout the day. Spirit familiars can be called upon through visualization techniques or maybe affirmations, helping to create that energetic barrier around us that protects us from workplace stress, from gossip, or conflict. Another one's going to be enhancing intuition and decision making. Familiars, especially spirit familiars, are often associated with heightened intuition and insight. And in the corporate world, where decisions need to be made quickly, strategically, we can call upon our familiar to help sharpen our intuitive abilities. Whether it's during a meeting, maybe it's while analyzing data, or maybe it's while considering a new career opportunity. You can quietly ask your familiar for guidance. This can be done through quick moments of mental focus, visualization, or just paying attention to gut feelings and subtle signs that your familiar may send. Another area is going to be to incorporate your familiar's energy into your actual workspace. You can discreetly integrate the energy of your familiar into your physical workspace. For example, you might place a small photo, a little figurine, or maybe like artwork representing your familiar on your desk. This could be a subtle way to stay connected to their energy without, drawing too much attention to it. If you work from home and you have a physical familiar, allow them to be near you in your workspace. This can help provide comfort and grounding energy throughout your workday. For spirit familiars, you could keep a personal object, maybe a crystal that symbolizes their energy, something that helps bring their presence into your corporate environment. We can also use our familiars for creativity and problem solving. If your job involves this, creativity, innovation, maybe problem solving skills, you can draw on your familiar's energy to help stimulate ideas and inspire new approaches. You might consult your familiar in moments of mental block or frustration, either maybe through a brief meditation or simply calling their energy to mind. Familiars, especially spirit guides or mythical creatures, can provide you with fresh perspectives or unexpected insights, guiding you towards creative solutions that help you stand out in your job. Another option here for our corporate connection with our familiars is going to be some type of workplace ritual for success and protection. I think we can incorporate our familiars into small, discrete rituals aimed at boosting our success and protection in the workplace. For instance, before an important meeting, before a special presentation, or maybe before an interview, you might call on your familiar's energy by lighting a candle, anointing yourself with a protection oil, or even carrying that small token I just talked about, something that represents your familiar. These little quick rituals can help you feel more empowered, for sure, more aligned, but just something that brings your familiar's energy to you in the task, so that they are supporting you as you navigate the corporate environment. Another option is going to be for fostering positive relationships. In the corporate world, building and maintaining positive relationships with colleagues and clients and your superiors is key. Networking matters. A familiar can help you foster harmonious interactions by lending you their calm or insightful energy during social situations. If you have a familiar that embodies qualities like loyalty, communication, charisma even, you can draw on their strengths when networking or collaborating with others. Before important meetings or like a social interaction, just take a moment, right? Connect with your familiar's energy to help you project confidence, ease, and positive energy. Another one's going to be to create personal boundaries. Corporate environments can sometimes blur the lines between professional and personal life, and it can be difficult to maintain healthy boundaries. Your familiar can help you with this. They can help you establish energetic and emotional boundaries, protecting you from feeling maybe overwhelmed or overextended. Spirit familiars in particular are going to be great for this, as they could act as invisible guardians, helping you maintain a strong sense of self and balance. You can call on your familiar's energy to reinforce your boundaries, particularly when dealing with demanding bosses or difficult coworkers. I'll say another area that we can bring them into the office and workplace is just to help bring balance and harmony. Your familiar can definitely be a source of balance, helping you bring more harmony into your work life. If you find yourself in a toxic or maybe high-stressed corporate environment, invoking the energy of your familiar through rituals or meditation can help you stay centered and grounded and less affected by those external pressures. This in turn can improve your productivity, your own personal well-being, and the relationships with your colleagues. And then lastly, just, incorporating them and their animal symbolism or their symbolism in general into corporate branding or leadership. If you have a leadership role or you happen to be involved in any branding or marketing, you could find ways to incorporate the symbolism of your familiar into your work. Like, let's say, for example, the raven. You might use the qualities of wisdom, intelligence, and transformation in your leadership style or business decisions. If your familiar is a spirit animal like a wolf, you might focus on teamwork, loyalty, and strategy, weaving these characteristics of how you lead or present your ideas. Those are just a handful of ideas, but either way, incorporating your familiar into your job or the corporate world doesn't have to require overt displays of witchcraft. It's about bringing their supportive, protective, and intuitive energy into your professional life, whether it's through subtle rituals, little symbols, meditative practices. Your familiar can help you navigate the complexities of the corporate environment and offer guidance, protection, and creative inspiration that enhances your work and your personal success. I hope this helps in understanding our familiars. I hope it helps in understanding the powerful and mystical bond we share with these spiritual allies, whether they take the form of a beloved pet or, a guide from the spirit realm. I believe familiars are more than just companions. They are our protectors, our guides, and our partners in our magical journey. The connection we forge with them is one of mutual respect and trust, enhancing not just our practice, but our personal growth as well. I encourage you to reflect on the signs and connections in your own life. And if you feel a familiar has chosen you, oh my goodness, you guys, honor that bond. How lucky are you? Their presence is a gift that can bring both practical and spiritual support in ways that we might not even realize. All right, well, I do have a poem for today's episode and the moon update for this week. I'll go grab those notes and I will be right back. All right, the poem I wrote for today and our familiars, it goes. A familiar comes with a quiet grace, a spirit guide and a whispered face. In shadows dark or in daylight's gleam, they walk beside you, part of the team. A cat, a crow, a wolf, a hare, their energy is everywhere. They sense the magic that you weave and help you when you dare believe. With glowing eyes or silent wings, they teach you all the hidden things. They guard your path and protect your space, and they guide you through life's endless chase. In dreams they speak, in spells they move, their presence helps your power groove. A partner, friend, or spirit near, a witch's work they hold so dear. So if you find one by your side, embrace their wisdom, let them guide. For in your heart and in your hand, your familiar walks this magical land. Well, our beautiful November moon is waxing right now. We had the start of November, actually November 1st, with a new moon. And now, well, this week, she is growing and getting stronger, brighter, and bigger. What does that mean for our practice? Well, it's the action time of the month. It is the time between the new moon and the full moon when her light is growing and when we typically want to focus on our growth, our attraction, and our own manifestation. So quick 3 things: set intentions for growth and manifestation, perform attraction and prosperity spells, and then work on personal growth and self-development. The waxing moon is ideal for setting our intentions, for things that we want to grow and attract in our life, such as career advancement, abundance, personal goals, relationships. You can perform manifestation rituals, write down your intentions, or use a spell to channel your desires into the universe as the moon's light grows stronger. Since the waxing moon is associated with building energy, it is the perfect time for spells that attract positive things like love, money, success, good luck even. Using tools like green candles for prosperity, rose quartz for loves, or herbs like cinnamon for abundance can enhance these spells. Focus on drawing what you want into your life as the moon pulls energy towards you. And the growing moon's energy is also a perfect time for, support in our self-improvement area. This is a great time for activities focused on learning new skills, starting new jobs, new projects, or working on our own personal development. You might perform a ritual or meditation focused on self-confidence, inner strength, and then, using the waxing moon's energy to grow into the best version of yourself. This is my energy time. This is when I'm all about working extra hard, when I'm doing more, and when I am personally pushing my limits. This is my action time. So I do want to take a quick moment before saying goodbye to say thank you, really to express my heartfelt gratitude for your continued support, your presence, your engagement. Oh my gosh, you guys, the notes. Thank you for all the notes with the last 3 episodes, with all the October stuff. But your notes, it all means something to me, whether you've been here from the beginning or you're just joining the journey now. Your connection and support make everything I do worthwhile. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and allowing me to be part of your magical path. It's because of you that this podcast thrives and grows. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.